You're just another black boy with no future. That's what Judge Harmon said right before slamming his gavel, his voice echoing through that cold courtroom like it was the final word on my entire life. I was 17, barely old enough to vote. Already judged. Already written off. Just another statistic. You know, the judge, he leaned over, peering at me like he'd seen my whole story in one glance. No discipline. No father figure. He actually pointed at me and asked, "Where's your father anyway?" I kept my eyes steady, tried to keep the rage down. "May I call him, Your Honor?" I asked, and the whole room stiffened. The judge just smirked. By all means, if he even answers. So I pulled out my phone, dialed my dad. "Hey, Dad, Judge Harmon says you failed to raise me right. He wants to know where you are. Can you come to courtroom 4B right now?" If you'd seen the look on that judge's face, man, you'd know this story was just getting started. But let me back up a sec. That morning, I walked into the courthouse carrying my science project, this air quality monitor I'd built for the Environmental Committee. I'm talking about months of work. All those late nights, solder burns, busted sensors, the whole deal. I barely got through the doors before Officer Briggs stopped me, squinting at my project like it was a bomb. "What's that contraption?" he barked, and before I could explain, he just snatched it out of my hands. I tried to stay cool. "It's for my presentation to the Environmental Committee." "Sir, I have documentation," but as soon as I reached for my backpack, his hand was on his holster, and where I can see them. Suddenly, I was surrounded by security, people staring, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. The wildest part? I watched as other folks walked right past briefcases, laptops, a white kid with his own science fair project, no questions. No hassle. I texted my dad. Delayed at security. Might miss my presentation. He texted back, worried, and I started to type out the whole story. But I didn't want to pile on more stress. Just told him, extra security, nothing serious. Judge Harmon watched the whole thing from across the lobby. Arms crossed. Didn't lift a finger. When I finally got a word in, the judge came over, peered down his nose, and asked, "Why aren't you in school?" Boy, like I was ditching. I have an excused absence. Sir, presenting my research to the Environmental Committee. Room 321. Dr. Williams is expecting me. He checked his watch, huffed, then turned to security. "Bring him to my courtroom first." So there I was, standing in this empty courtroom, my project in pieces on a table, feeling like I was on trial for daring to care about the air in my neighborhood. "Explain again what this device does," Judge Harmon said, not even looking up from his phone. I told him real calm about tracking air pollution in low-income neighborhoods, how my data showed higher asthma rates where enforcement was weakest. He didn't care. Tossed my paperwork aside. "Why do you bring this to my courthouse?" I tried to explain, but he just barked. "Are you telling me how to do my job?" Then he stood up, came around the bench, looming over me. I've seen every excuse, every scheme. This could interfere with courthouse systems. He slammed his hand on the table, sensors went flying. Months of work. Just smashed. He laughed when I called it research. "Where do you get these parts? Who really built this?" I said I built it myself. Parts funded by a state science grant. He sneered. "A likely story. This isn't your science fair. We'll hold it for inspection." He told me to wait in the hall. I asked for a receipt. Getting legal advice from somewhere. Are we? And let me tell you, standing in that hallway, watching the clock tick toward my presentation time, I felt about as powerless as I ever had in my life. And then twist number 1, Dr. Williams, the committee's lead scientist, found me. "There you are. Why aren't you setting up?" I told him. Judge Harmon confiscated my project. Dr. Williams, who never raised his voice, just marched straight to the judge's chambers, dragging me behind. Suddenly, Judge Harmon sat up straighter, like he was meeting someone who actually mattered. "Dr. Williams laid it out. Devin is our keynote student presenter. The judge said. He brought unauthorized electronics. Dr. Williams shot back. I personally vetted this project. Judge's reply? Did you run background checks on his family? Do you know where he's from? I could feel my face burning. I was born in Chicago. Sir, family's been there for generations. But the judge was done pretending to listen. So I went into the committee meeting, empty-handed, no project. No slides. Nothing but what I could remember. That walk into the room felt like walking into a firing squad. I apologized, told them my project was confiscated, and started explaining from memory. My voice was shaky at first, but as I described my research, how particulate matter was 3 times higher in my neighborhood, how emergency room visits spiked with pollution, how enforcement was always stricter in rich areas the committee leaned in. I drew diagrams on a notepad, showed patterns, explained methodology. By the time I finished, they were clapping. Remarkable work. Dr. Lawson, the chair, said, would you present at the state conference next month? I nodded, feeling that mix of relief and anger. After, Dr. Williams and I went to ask for my project back. The judge wouldn't budge. Our security needs more time. Could be days. Could be weeks. Dr. Williams pressed. It's months of data irreplaceable. The judge just smiled. Said, should have thought of that before bringing suspicious devices. That's when I called my uncle Jamisa. Lawyer told him everything. Document it all. He said, names, times, what was said. I'll make calls. Next morning, my phone buzzed. Your project marked for disposal tomorrow. Sorry, friend at courthouse. Heart pounding. I rushed down there. Tried to see Judge Harmon. Got stonewalled. Security wouldn't budge. I even begged Officer Briggs. Can I at least recover the data drive? He smirked. Learn your lesson and move on. I called my uncle again. Told him. They're destroying my work tomorrow. That night, I rebuilt what I could from memory in the garage. My mom watched. Worried. Sometimes fighting isn't worth it. But for me, this was worth it. Judge Harmon wasn't just trashing a science project, he was silencing data about the worst air pollution in the city, right outside his own courthouse. Was that a coincidence? I didn't know, but I wasn't letting it go. Next morning, I waited on the courthouse steps with every document I could gather. My uncle's help behind me. When the judge showed up, I confronted him calm, but direct. If my property is destroyed without due process, I'll escalate. Judge Harmon's eyes went cold. You have no power here. The courthouse belongs to the people. Your Honor, I said, louder than I meant to. Security tried to confiscate my paperwork, but I held on tight, notarized copies. Sir, scientific grant documentation. He leaned in. You think papers will save you? You're nothing here. But then twist number 12, courthouse administrator came running. Urgent phone call for Judge Harmon. As soon as he disappeared, I tried again with Officer Briggs, but he just said, I got 3 years till retirement. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at him. Is your pension worth destroying evidence of discrimination? He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told me everything. A public defender named Laura Chun happened by, heard my story, made some calls. Together we found my project in the disposal room locked up, about to be destroyed. We filed an emergency motion, but before anything could move, Judge Harmon himself strolled in, all smug, ready to finish what he'd started. He banned me from the building, told Laura, some people need to learn their place. I'll never forget those words. As we were escorted out, I saw him, through the closing door, pick up a hammer. He's going to destroy it himself. I whispered. Laura just nodded. Time to call in bigger guns. That's when my dad finally called back. Turns out, my dad Robert Taylor works for the Justice Department. Not that I ever told anyone at school. Put me on speaker, he said, his voice calm but hard as steel. Laura let us back inside. Waved my dad's government number at security. Suddenly, doors opened. Guards snapped to attention. Who exactly is your father? Laura asked. He worked for justice. I said. Understatement of the year. When we faced Judge Harmon, Laura told him, we have instructions to call this number. The judge sneered. But when he called it, his face went pale. Yes, sir. Understood. Sir. He handed my project over immediately, muttering about bureaucratic overreach. On the way out, my phone rang again. Is it resolved, son? My dad asked. Yes, Dad. Thank you. Good. Now, put Judge Harmon on the line. I'll be in your courthouse tomorrow morning. Laura's eyes got huge. Your father is? Judge Harmon looked like he'd seen a ghost. Judge Harmon, this is United States Attorney General Robert Taylor. I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow to discuss your treatment of my son and judicial misconduct. The judge nearly dropped the phone. And let me tell you, be dawn. The news vans were already circling. FBI agents in the lobby. My dad arrived. Tall. Calm. Every bit the man I'd hoped to grow up to be. You okay? He asked quietly. Better now, I said. Turns out, my project, my data, it was just the tip of the iceberg. Laura Chun, now working with my dad's office, had uncovered a pattern. Judge Harmon's harshest sentences always fell on neighborhoods with the worst pollution. Those were the same places Senator Whitfield was quietly buying up land after environmental violations tanked property values. My research had mapped out a conspiracy nobody wanted found. The Justice Department dropped the hammer. Harmon put on administrative leave. Whitfield caught in a web of shell companies, environmental violations, and phone calls linking everything together. In front of the Judicial Review Board, Harmon cracked, agreed to testify against Whitfield in exchange for a deal. The whole city held its breath as news spread. Senators resigning, other judges quietly stepping down, the EPA launching investigations in a dozen cities. Weeks later, I rebuilt my project, presented my findings to the state conference, this time with the FBI standing guard. My work became a model for the whole city, then the nation. Environmental protection laws finally being enforced where they mattered most. The day they dedicated the new Environmental Science Academy at my old school. I watched neighborhood kids learning how to keep their air clean. My name was on the banner, but it wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who refused to accept injustice, who believed their voice mattered, even when the system told them to know their place. So, let me ask you if you found any strength in this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell someone about it. Justice isn't automatic, it's built, one act at a time, by people who refuse to let silence win. Where do you stand? Drop a comment, tell me what justice means to you. Or share your own story. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person refusing to back down, and the world starts to change.